Following Ready or Not releasing on consoles is a list of new patches and features that have been added into the game. So let's jump right in. First and foremost, we got our two new maps called Stolen Valor and Hunger Strike. In Stolen Valor, we are attempting to locate a kidnapped officer and rescue him from the Hillside Rollers gang. Overall, the map is super interesting. It's well laid out and complex enough to add a ton of replayability. Something I wanted to mention though, that kind of bothered me was that in the level, you find the kidnapped officer strung up by his arms, no longer alive. When you find him, you report him as an officer down, but then that's it. Talk just kind of acknowledges it and moves on. I'm gonna give Void a reality check here. If I was still a police officer and was placed in this exact same situation, even though we're in a bad place and regardless of evidentiary rules, I would take the time to cut that officer down. I literally can't imagine thinking of a fellow police officer in that situation and not doing something in that moment. Even then, just as a life-saving measure, what if they aren't actually deceased and they're still alive but unconscious with a thready pulse? Them hanging there for however long it is until trailers make their way in would almost certainly contribute to them not surviving the situation. Like, even if Void wanted to create a crappy or even jump cut animation of that officer being taken down, that would feel more appropriate than just leaving him to hang. Again, overall, it's a pretty interesting map and decently fun to play, but that's just one thing that struck me as off-putting. Now, taking a look at fast food, this was actually a map that was taken out a little while back, so I'm glad to see it made a reappearance here. Overall, the map feels pretty small. I think it's probably a little bit smaller than the 4U gas station, at least anecdotally, and it's very, very engaging. It's really fun. I really do like and appreciate the addition of the second story, although I would have been happier to see a rooftop access of some sort, as that's a lot of wasted space to not be able to utilize. I think seeing it now and its full coat of polish is super awesome, and again, overall is a very enjoyable and quick experience. Taking a look at the new weapons, they're neat. It's a good break from the 8000 AR clones that we have already. The M32A1 takes up your primary and feels like a flashbang launcher with multiple rounds. The Mark V pistol feels like it would rip your wrists off in real life and somewhat impractical, but again, still it's an interesting addition. The less lethal pepperball pistol feels like a pepperball gun, but in a pistol format. Realistically, I feel like this was just put in to ensure that your AI doesn't end up using a gun secondary and then murking somebody while you're trying to do an S rank run. The new shotgun feels like a shotgun, just with a magazine, so it's convenient, but not really a whole lot different than most of the other shotguns in the game. Void also included an RMR on the LPVO, and that's most likely to make up for the fact that the magnification is still kind of borked. Just as a general rule for the AI after this update, they feel not a whole lot different than before. In fact, they're almost kind of worse, as I've had the AI jump in front of me several times while trying to unlock doors. Now, to provide more context, one of the devs did make mention in the Discord that this update was basically going to have almost no changes to the AI's behavior, so that makes sense. But also it doesn't. This is part of my larger issue currently with game development, especially game development that works off of investors having a say on things. I have no doubt in my mind that they were getting pressure to release on console, so all of their focus just went towards porting things over. But in that same breath, why aren't we focusing on player retention by improving the single player SWAT AI? Literally, you're bringing in a whole new group of gamers into this sphere and their first impression of the AI is this? So yeah, if you're hoping that the AI in this update had any form of genuine behavior fixes, get ready to be let down. Now, speaking of the AI, Void have improved how our two-legged meat shields look while moving around and overall interact with the world. Their animations look decently smooth, but I can't help but feel like the walking feels off somehow. I really don't know what it is, and maybe I'm alone in this, but it just feels very uncanny. I will also make mention that the AI seems to be a lot more verbose. They tend to call for compliance more often and overall feel a lot better as far as team communication goes.
Zip them up.
How do those feel, sport?
A tiny addition to the AI's uniform overall is that their strobe colors on their helmet are now aligned with their actual team. That's pretty nifty. I'm going to speak to this later on, but from a factual, just what's in the game perspective of what Void has changed to comply with the ESRB looks like this. And And on top of Void disappointing me in other ways, we still don't have taser flop animations. Because, you know, setting the AI character's model state to a semi-stiff ragdoll and then keeping the taser probe spawned in unless they collide with an object would just be too hard. Also on the main loading page, we now see an online friends list, which is pretty neato for quick access to your homies. Void have also said that the GPU and CPU performance across all maps has been improved, which in my experience with an RX 9060 XT and a 5800 XT is decently accurate. My experience has been solid and overall gameplay has been pretty smooth. I can't speak to the consoles and their experience, but I am seeing a lot of users express their dissatisfaction with how some things are going. So if y'all have your own console experiences, please put them down below. We got our first hands-on look at the AI difficulty system, and I feel like this should assist with overall replay value. Here are the standards for casual, standard, and hard. And when they say hard, man, they absolutely mean it. Most time things spiral out of control real quick after engaging a single suspect. Casual feels pretty fun actually, and almost in a weird way more realistic, as suspects are more likely to surrender, which in something like the gas station makes absolute sense. Like I said before, with these new game modes, I can absolutely see the replay value going up, especially since each level has its own version of difficulty leveling. Void have also worked on aim assist for you console boys out there, so maybe use that as a friend or foe identification. All I'm saying is, if you got all that aim assist and you still murk a teammate, that is a skill issue for sure. And also from what I've heard in the Ready or Not Discord is that things have been less than awesome in multiplayer as far as, well, age is concerned. You know, I got a bad feeling that this game is gonna have a lot of screaming 11-year-olds in it for a while, so there you go. And currently, as of July 15th, there is already a good number of bugs they're seeing overall, so if you maybe want to wait a day or so to jump in, that way you have a little bit of a better experience, that's what I would do. Now let's get to the not so fun subject of the censorship that took place. I'll be honest, I'm going to fence sit on this one, as I really do have opposing thoughts on this. I understand it from Void's perspective in the sense that they wanted to gather a new crowd of people in the console market, and with that, they have to comply with the rating boards. And with rating boards, they could be pretty inconsistent with the application of those rules. On the other hand, I have difficulties accepting that this wasn't just a technical issue that could be overcome with enough time and effort. As many other people have stated, something like a censorship slider or a DLC pack that could be installed later on by the user is absolutely viable. And again, I'm not a Void dev, so I don't know how things look on the coding side of things, but man, overall, this really feels more like an act of convenience rather than an act of malice. So overall, with this new console release, it feels pretty underwhelming from a gameplay perspective. Again, I'm not going to discount that they added in those 2 new maps and did their best to make a bunch of bug fixes and also added in the new gameplay difficulty mode. But it feels like with every step forward that Void makes, they tend to take another straight backwards. I'm hopeful that Void will see to it that the original gritty nature of the game is preserved. And while I do see the current changes as being decently minor, it's that it sets a precedent in my mind, and I hope that that doesn't continue moving forward. But y'all tell me down below how you feel about it. I have no doubt that you will if you haven't already, so. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And as always, remember our sole objectives. Stop the killing, stop the dying. I'll see y'all later.